Okay, so good evening once again. My name is Aposian Rich Moyeboa, and like I said, I'm going to be your instructor for the next 2 weeks. All right, for today's session, we are going to just introduce you to C++ programming and what you can do. And all those things that we are going to discuss today has been divided into three parts. Okay, so with the first session of today, still under today's session, we are going to discuss or I'm going to give you a comprehensive introduction to C++, understand the importance of it, right? What you can use it for, also guide you as participants of the RTyoungStars 2023 in setting up your C++ development environment. All right. And also, we are going to write a simple Hello World program, right? In most of our programming courses, the first thing we usually do is the Hello World program. And we are going to do that under the first part of today's session. So let's just dive into what we will be discussing. Like I said, for those that just joined, please, if you have any question, just jot them down. And after every part, we are going to give room for questions and answers. Okay. Okay, Efia, you have your hand up. Some of you have your hands up. Is there anything you would want to ask or say before? If you have nothing to say, then kindly put your hands down so that, yeah, okay. Thank you very much. All right, so introduction to C++. What is C++? Okay, so as written here, it's just a versatile programming language with a high performance and support for object-oriented programming, right? When we talk of object-oriented programming, we are talking about programming in a way of using objects, right? So for instance, there is going to be a class, and under that class, we are going to pick an object from that class, and then we are going to use properties and methods to describe that particular object. But please, in this RT Youngstars, we are not going to move into the object oriented programming. We are going to use procedural programming. That's where we use only functions, right? So we are going to divide our programs into functions, and we are going to call them as time goes on. You would understand that. So just understand that C++ is a high level language. That is one thing. And when we talk of high level languages, they are just designed for humans, right? So we know we all have to communicate to these machines that our softwares will be running on. So you want to develop a software for a machine, you need to use a programming language, right? And those programming languages, we have levels. We have a high level, we have the low level, and then we have the machine language. So let me just break it down for you to understand. High level language is the Python, the Java, the C++ you are learning now. Those are high level languages, right? Those languages are in human nature, right? So we can easily understand it and then instruct the computer with those languages, right? And after writing these languages are being compiled and break down into a low level language. An example of a low level language is an assembly language, right? You would get to know of that later on. Okay, so an assembly language. And from the assembly language, we can move to a machine language, which the machine would understand. And let me give you a simple understanding of the machine language. You see the zeros and ones you've been seeing in those action movies, those are machine languages, right? So that language is mainly understood by the CPU or the processor of the machine or computer you are using, right? Okay, so let's move to the importance of C++. Okay, why C++ at all? Why are we not doing Python? Because Python is one of the mostly used programming languages in the world. Why don't we use that? Right. So let's see. C++ is a widely used programming language in software development. When it comes to software development, C++ is mainly used. And it will shock you that there are most of the softwares you've been using that you never knew they were developed, or some part of them were developed using C++. We all have Windows computers or even Mac OS. I mean, MacBooks. We all have those ones. Part of these operating systems were developed using C++. We also have Mozilla Firefox. If you don't use any of these browsers, then I don't know who you are. In this part of the world, I don't know who you are. So all these browsers were also partially developed using what we call C++, what we are discussing today. And most of the games, if you're a fan of game, you should know the World of Warcraft. So if you're a fan of game like me, you should know that. You should know the Halo, and you should know Grand Theft, the almighty Grand Theft, right? So these games were also what developed by C++. So if you're a game player, please also look at how to develop a game and also what earn money out of it. Don't just be giving money out to people, downloading people's game. Think about how you can also what develop a game. And C++ is something you can use or stand on to develop all these games you've been playing. All right. Okay. So there are some microcontrollers. That is the main reason why we are even learning C++ for this RTyoungStars 2023. There are some microcontrollers that uses the C++ programming language. Example is the ARM Cortex series, the M series. And these microcontrollers are used in, if you are an iPhone user, right? There are some of these microcontrollers in the iPhone you use, right? And also the almighty Arduino microcontroller is being programmed using the C++ language. Another importance is that C++ is very efficient and fast. With all the high level language, I can say C++ is one of the efficient and then fast programming language. They don't take time in compiling, right? When you develop applications with them, the applications are able to run smoothly, unlike other programming languages. All right. The support for both procedural and then object. So I've already spoke about this. And with that, when we talk of procedural code, right, it's a form of programming where your program is being divided into functions, right? So in C++, we have be, how do you call it, defining functions, right? And you be calling functions. Now these functions are basically set of codes that are mainly purpose to perform some specific task, right? So you write some group of codes to perform calculation, let's say, and find the factorial of a number. You write, so all those ones are functions. And now when you are done writing those functions, you come and call them. So that is what we will be doing in this session, or I mean this RTyoungStars program, the procedural way of programming using the C++. For the object oriented, we will leave it for another time, probably next year. We'll talk about the object oriented programming using C++. All right. And then the key language for system application software game development, embedded firmwares, right? So I have already spoke about this. All right. And with what we've just learned today, right now, we've understand that the C++ programming language can be used in developing softwares, games, and also embedded firmware. So this year there were schools that developed drones and all that, right? And one thing about their drone was they had a flight controller. Now these flight controllers have firmwares which use the C++ language in developing them. All right. Okay, so after this particular slide, we are going to move to our computer. Then I'll show you how to set up an online compilers for those using the Windows or MacBook. All right. So we are going to learn about setting up the online or the development environment for C++. The three key importance, right, of getting or having a development environment are for what? Testing, debugging, collaboration, and risk mitigation. All right. Now, in talk of testing, you need to test your code and see if it's working. You are writing a code for a calculator. You need to test if all the functions or functionalities of the program is working. Whether it's able to find the multiplication, is able to find the addition, is able to find subtraction. Whatever your code or program is supposed to do, you should test it and see if it can do that. And that's what we use development environments for. And whenever you find a problem in your code, you do what we call debugging, right? So you look through your code, check if there are errors, and with development environments, it's going to help you to locate those errors and then easily give you just on how to solve them. All right. Also helps in collaboration. One of the development environment that really helps in collaboration is the Visual Studio Code, right? you are able to use some extensions that will help you to collaborate with different developers, right? So, this Facebook application or WhatsApp application you see, it's not just developed by just one developer. There are a group of developers, right? And these group of developers work together. So maybe your status, you see the part for the WhatsApp where you can view status and all that. That part is being developed by some group of what developers, right? And the part where you chat, the part where you go to settings, right? So these things are all sections of the whole program, and they all come together to form the WhatsApp application, right? So development environment helps us to collaborate, work together to build one program or one software. And also for risk mitigation, right? Since we are all not handling one part of the program, one person can't just stand up one day and shut the whole program down. Yeah. All right. So that's what it actually means. And that's what development environment gives you. All right. So let's see some options. We have online compilers. And one of the popular online compilers for most programming languages is the Replit. And that's what we'll be using, or I'll be showing you how to set up the Replit. Right. We also have the online GDB, which is also popular. We also have the JDoodle, and then we have others as well, right? So all those ones are online compilers. When I say online compilers, you open these compilers in your web browser. All right, you need internet connection to access these compilers. And we also have integrated development environment, right? So those are applications that runs on the system, right? It runs on the system. You don't need internet connection. Right. So it has the programming environment there, interpreter there. So where it will help you to write your code, do your debugging without any internet connection. Example is the Visual Studio Code. After downloading all your extensions, all your compilers, I mean the interpreters, you don't need any internet connection to run them. All right. Okay, we also have code blocks, right? It's mainly used for C++, and we have Xcode. Xcode runs on Mac OS, all right? And we have, so I'm going to show you the process to set up your Replit account. Just go through what I'm showing you. Just look at it, and then you do the same when we go offline. Today, we are not going to do more of the coding, so don't worry about that. So this is so when you type replit.com, right? So here, when you type replit.com, this is what you see. And you just come to the sign up. So if you come to the sign, it's very simple. You just log into your Gmail, then you sign up with your Gmail. Or if you have a GitHub account, which I would encourage each and everyone to have a GitHub account. If you are a developer or a programmer, you should have a GitHub account. That's where you keep your projects, you keep your works. All right. So if you have a GitHub account, you can sign up with a GitHub. If you don't have that for now and you have the Gmail, which I assume you all have, you should sign up with the Gmail. Right. So after signing up, this is what you see. So me, I already have an account. So I'm just going to log in. Right. So I log in and it's my Gmail I use. So I'm just going to log in with my Gmail. So this is for those who are using the laptops and then or the MacBook, right? Laptops or MacBook. All right. So it's just logging in and it takes some few minutes or seconds to log in because based on your internet connection. And this is what you see when you log in at first, right? So you come to create Replit or repo, right? And then you choose the programming language. So we have Python, Node.js, and what we are doing is C++. So you just look for C++, then you select it. After selecting C++, there are two different ones, right? So you can actually choose any, but I would suggest you choose the first one, right? After choosing it, you come and then you give your program title, so any name, right? So let's say, let me give it a name here, a title. So Rich Tech, right? So I'm just giving it the name Rich Tech. And then I'll say create Replit. So it's going to create the um, file for me, right? And then what I'm going to see, it's a basic the structure, the basic structure for C++. I hope you can all see it. So let me just zoom in a bit. And this is what you see. This is the code you write, and here this is the output result. This is the code you write, this is the output result, right? So if you want to run the code, you just type or tap on the run here, right? Tap on the run here and then you run. So yes, this is how to set up your Replit account, right? So I hope you can all do that. Let's move on to our slides and then continue from there. So now we all know how to set up the online compiler. At a good time, I'll also show you how to set up the Visual Studio Code. That's for those that use the laptops or the MacBook, right? Okay, so let's move on. Now, writing our first program, like I said, we are going to write our first Hello World program. But before that, I want you to know the basic structure of the what? C++ program. And this is the basic structure. Now we have what we call include IO stream. Now in programming, we have what we call libraries or files. Now libraries are basically pre-written programs, right? Let's say pre-written program. Just take it as program that has already been written, right? And what you have to do is these programs perform a specific task. So whenever you need them, you just go and then what? Add them to your working space or your programming, your code, right? So we have this what we call input and output stream. Input and output stream. That is what you see here, IO stream, right? That's the input and output stream. And what this input and output stream helps us to do is to what? Receive input from the user of our program or give output to the user of our program. Very simple, right? So in everything, in every program that you write, you obviously what? Give out output to the what? User. You would obviously what? Receive input from the user. Our calculator gives us results, and then we also input some values for it to calculate for us, right? Our normal Casio calculators, and it also has a program running on it, right? So you should have a way of what? Receiving input and then giving out. So that's what the input and output stream does. So we have here the include input and output stream statement in C++ allows for input and output operations such as printing to the console and also reading from the keyboard. All right, so very simple as that. Then we also have the second part here, which is using namespace std. This statement in C++ just allows you to use the standard library functions, right? Or use the standard objects without having to specify it whenever you need it. And then I'll give you two separate scenarios that would actually explain what I'm saying right now, right? So we'll move on from here. Um, okay, so we also have what we call the int main function. That's the entry point. The int main function you see here, this is the int main function, what I'm moving the mouse cursor around. That's the int main function. And what do you see? You see int, you see main, you see open and close parentheses, and then you see open and close brackets, and then you see open and close curly brackets, right? So this is the int main function, and this function should be a constant. It wouldn't change. Like this is where you are going to write your code, and this is where the compiler is going to what compile the code from. This is the entry point. So whenever the compiler is compiling, it's going to look at the int main function. What is in the int main function, right? If you want to define any other function apart from the int main function, you would have to call it in the int main function no matter what. All right. So let's take note of that. So now that we know the basic structure of the C++, let's move on to writing our first program. And from there, I will show you the reason why we use this using namespace std. Okay. So now this program here is to print hello world on our screen, right? And since I've already told you that there is a library that enables us to what print something on the screen and also receive input from the user, we don't need to write the code all over again. We just include that library in our what programming workspace. That is what you see here. The first thing you see here, include IO stream. I hope you can see that. All right, that's what I have my mouse around. And then the next thing is what we need to um, state the standard function we are using, or the standard. We need to tell the compiler that we are using the standard function for all the libraries or for all the objects we would be using. All right, that's the using namespace std. All right. We will talk more about the using namespace std, right? But for now, I just want you to know that no matter the programming project you are working on, you have to use this. It should be here, right? Okay. Now let's see our int main function. And like I said, the int main function is where the program will start, where the compiler will start running the whole code. All right. So we have C out. C out means character out, right? And then the less than, two less than signs you see here is used to insert data into the C out, right? And what data do we want to insert into the C out to print, or to print on our screen? We want to print the hello world. So we put the hello world in open into inverted commas, double inverted commas over here. All right. Then we also have the end L. The end L simply means we should end that particular line and reset the C out. Right. So we are going to end the line. So we want to print hello world. That's all. And return zero just tells the function, or it means that the function has returned zero, meaning the function has executed successfully, right, without any error. All right. So we are going to run this program for us to see the output. All right. So let me just. So like I said, if you don't include the using namespace std here, right, you are supposed to what, bring the std in front of every function you use from every library. So you see, we were using cout from the library called iostream, and since we didn't bring the std using namespace std, we are specifying the std right here. I don't know if you can see that. So you can see from here we have using namespace std, right? So we don't need to bring any std in front of the cout. But here we didn't specify, so we have to use the std in front of the cout, and you will use it in front of any function you use. So it's better to specify it at the top, right? So let me take this one off, then I'll specify the using namespace std, right? Okay, so that is right. Then we are going to um end our code, and L, right? So this code, when I run this code, is supposed to print on the console right here. This is the console where I have my mouse, right? If I run this program, it should print hello world, right? So I'm going to run it by tapping on this button here. So you can see here, hello world, hello world. So imagine you want to print something else that, let's say you want to print, I love programming, right? Maybe you wanted to print this one instead. So it's the same thing. It's going to run, and you can see it right here. I love programming. All right. So that is it for the simple Hello World program. So now I hope you can all write the simple Hello World program. And let me explain to you the last thing for this part of the session. Then we close, and I would ask for any question if you have any. So yes, this is a program with what? Without using namespace std. So you could see here we included the IO stream, right? But we didn't bring the using namespace std. So what then did we do? After or before every function, or before every statement here, we have to include the word STD just to tell it that it's a standard, it's in the standard form. All right. So you could see here we wanted to print welcome to RichTechWorld, but the C out we had to bring the STD there. The end L, we had to bring the STD there. After printing Rich Tech World, we also wanted to print I will be your instructor for today, right? And with that one to the C out, the same thing. We had to bring what? There's STD there to specify that that is what in a standard form. The end L to the same thing. So you will do that for all the functions that you'll be using, all the statements. You would have to bring STD, 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 and that is boring, isn't it? So instead of writing it this way, you could have just used the using namespace STD. Just specify it at a global level, and then it is going to be applied to all of them. So you would realize that with this C out, I didn't bring STD, and then it will work. The end L, no STD. The C out, you understand? And this program is going to function the same way as this one. So please choose to use the using namespace STD than specifying the STD everywhere. All right. So any question, any question for this 30 minutes session that we've had so far? If you have any question, we have 2 minutes for questions and answers. Then we'll move real quick into the next session. So if you have any question, just raise your hand, and then I would call you to ask your question. Okay, it seems all right. So Efia, you can ask your question. Kindly unmute yourself and ask your question. Efia, are you with us? All right. It seems Efia can't.
Hello, please. Good evening.
Good evening.
Please. My question is, why is it that after replacing the Hello World with the I love programming, the Hello World was still there?
Oh,
Like
okay.
I thought
So,
it was.
oh, okay. So that is Replit. Okay. So with Replit, it's just showing you the first one the first result of the first program you ran, right? So in okay, let me show you this. I'm coming. Please hold on.
Okay.
All right. So let me use this one for you to understand better. All right. Let's copy the same code. I hope you can see my screen though.
Yes,
So
please.
basically with Replit, right, it's just telling us that this code was compiled for what 3 seconds, and then the output was being given at this time, at this date, right? And if you run another one, it's going to show you the seconds it took, the time it was able to give the results, and then the date as well. All right, so that's Replit, right? Okay,
Yes,
so
sir.
with this, let me just um, let me just put it here. All right, so I'm running this one. Can you see here? Hello. We have
Yes, sir.
I love programming, right? And then
Yes.
that is what was printed here. So when I clear it and write hello world, it should clear what it had over there. And then, so is this one okay for you?
Yes, please.
All right. So all right. Anyone with any other question? If not, then let's move on to the next part of the session. Okay, so Jackie, Please ask your question. So this is the last question we are taking for this part of the session. I will give more room for questions at the end of the session, so don't worry if your question is not answered now. Jackie, please go on.
Okay, please, good evening. I wanted to find out, like, some parts of what you were explaining. I didn't really get it because the screen is a little too small. I wanted to know if you send the PowerPoint so that some of us can go to and understand it better.
Yeah, sure. At the end of this session, you would have the PowerPoint. Okay. Thank you very much for that.